Do you want some design inspiration and to learn what I did to make these slides even more effective and engaging? Well, then stay tuned because this video is part of my slide makeover series. These slides were submitted by one of our viewers, Sue Griffey. Thanks for letting me play around with these slides, Sue. You rock. The first thing we're going to do is diagnose the elements that can be improved. We'll start with this slide. First, I want to talk about what Sue did well. There is a visual, it's relevant, and there's not a lot of text on the slides. The font size for program evaluation is a decent size as well. It's a size 32. So now let's talk about what to improve. First, you could probably tell that the image was a bit fuzzy and pixelated, which meant it wasn't meant to be this big. Second, the slide size needs to be updated. Right now, it's a square, and really it should be a widescreen. It's also hard to read the text when it's at a weird angle. Plus, this is a template, which means there's a bit of clutter, like this rectangle that doesn't mean anything. You also don't need to have links on your slides because people are watching the slide and no one's really going to write down a website link. Just give it to them in a handout or some other way. And finally, this page number is also a bit of clutter and it's at a bad angle, so it's hard to read and it stands out because of the red. So we should probably just get rid of that. And this heading here, it feels a little unimportant, almost like a second thought. So we're going to need to add some design so this stands out more. To sum it up, this slide has a few issues that we'll need to fix with some decluttering, design, and organization. Moving on to this slide. Again, Sue doesn't have a lot of text on this slide, which is fantastic. She's also using this as a transition slide. It's got great large text, and I love that she's using a full-size image. So now let's talk about what to improve. The two main things are that the text is hard to read, and the visual itself isn't all that compelling. Okay, finally we have this slide, and again, Sue is doing a great job with trying to reduce the amount of text she's adding to the slides. She also has a photo of real people in here, which is great. So now let's talk about what to improve. Well, this slide is a bit confusing. All of this shows up at once, so it's hard to know where to start and what the flow is. And even if there were animations set up to go in order and walk people through it, it'd still be pretty overwhelming. The different colors, the different fonts, symbols, angles, it's just a bit too much going on, so we can clean that up. Now it's time for the makeover. Let's start with this slide. The title, Program Evaluation, again, it feels a little unimportant and hidden away all up in the corner. So the first thing I did was to turn it into a transition slide. Sue would only be on this slide for a few seconds to introduce the topic of evaluation, but it sets the stage for the audience and gets them ready to learn about this exciting topic. Now I've remade that process graphic. There is nothing that says you have to use the original image of a framework. You can remake it, and that's what I did here. Notice that I've removed the extra clutter too. The URL, the red rectangle, it's a lot cleaner now. You might be wondering why I turned an image into text. Well, let's take a closer look at that so-called image. It's actually all text. There are arrows, I guess, but it really is just text anyway. And the problem is that it's a lot of text all at once. So I retyped the framework and I've created a whole series of animations so now I can actually walk people through this instead of showing it all at once. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to give an example of how I could see this happening. Ready? Let's start over. So let's talk about the steps in a program evaluation. Here is the CDC framework for program evaluation, and we're going to go through this step by step. First, you engage your stakeholders. Then you work together to describe the program. After that, you can narrow down and figure out what the evaluation design is going to be. From there, you collect your data or evidence and use that evidence to justify and explain your conclusions. And finally, you use and share the lessons learned. And when you're done with that, the process starts all over again, starting with engaging your stakeholders. In addition to these steps, there are some standards that apply to the entire project. These standards are feasibility, utility, propriety, and accuracy. So that's the makeover for that one slide. Instead of one text-only image and spending, a minute or two on that one image, I've added a series and it's now more engaging and will keep their attention because there's movement and change, and it will walk them through each step. Let's move on to the next slide. Here's the original. I didn't do too much. I just added a more engaging image, a transparent shape, and then some big text. So this one only took about a minute to do, and it's much more visually appealing. Okay, now let's talk about the last slide. This is the one where it's a bit overwhelming. There's a lot going on, and I don't know what order to go in. There's just a lot of information here. So again, I'm going to first create a transition slide. I took this image, which was really tiny, and I made it full screen. Plus, I added in a transparent shape and some big text again. So here is how I picture the series happening now. Okay, so now let's talk about why you should do an evaluation. Well, you can use it to document program accomplishments and show beneficiaries what's been done, improve the implementation and effectiveness of programs, better manage limited resources, demonstrate program effectiveness to funders, justify current funding, and support the need for increased levels of funding. So do you see what I did here? There is technically more text, but I've used icons, it's still big text, and it's organized in a way that actually makes it easier for people to read and follow along. So those are the makeovers. Let's do a quick comparison of the before and after. Before, we had this text-only image, which wasn't really adding a lot of visual appeal anyway, and forces you to stay on this one slide with no movement for a really long time. I broke it up by adding a transition slide and then creating a series to walk them through each point. It takes the same amount of time to go through the topic, but there's more movement and interest. This slide didn't have a highly compelling visual and it was hard to read the text. So I added a nice visual and some clear text. And finally, this slide needed some focus, organization, and decluttering, so I used icons and white space to do that. If you liked this makeover and you're interested, there is a free download available to you. It includes the direct links to the photos that were included in this makeover. They are free, plus a list of the information design strategies I used. Now I want to hear from you. What changes would you have made? Leave a comment below. And thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, share it in your networks, and make sure to connect with me on Twitter. See you the next time. Bye!